Cat. How y'all doing? Tonight we're gonna go a little country. I thought we'd talk about a story I wrote called The Zombie Apocalypse Sucks. It sucks. It sucks so bad. This was a fun story. It's probably one of the very few funny, comedic creepypastas that you'll run across. And it's because of this story that I started my channel, believe it or not. I would say that this story was the one that started giving me a little bit of notoriety in the community, or people are starting to know my name and connect my name. This story started out quite differently. When I first had the idea for the story, it was actually my attempt to try to write something actually scary. Because a lot of my early works, I don't really felt that they were scary. They may have been unnerving or a little bit chilling, but not really scary. So I was trying to do something a little along those lines. And I had this idea, and at first I was going to call it The Raft. So it was going to start with a loner type of person going through the deserted towns after the zombie apocalypse, and he was trying to evade so in my stories, the zombies travel in hordes as opposed to individual stragglers, and he was trying to get away from or try to evade the hordes they would move like flocks of birds and stuff like that. That's kind of what I had in my head. And he was walking down this long deserted road, and in the corner, in the distance, he could see that there was a lake. He turned around and see that the horde had moved in his direction and were bearing down on him. So he's running to the lake and finally gets there. He doesn't see anywhere to go, kind of just water. And off to the corner, he sees this little floatable raft and decides to get on this and kind of paddle to the middle of the lake to get away from these zombies. And it kind of ends with him kind of stuck in the middle of the lake, and they just keep on walking through the water. And you're left with this image, and this is what I kind of had in my head, of him on this little floatable raft on the water, and he could feel the fingers from underneath just brushing against the rubber. He was just barely out of reach, and kind of like that kind of squeaking sound that you get when you rub against like a balloon, or that's what he was hearing, and just they were underneath the water, just grabbing for him. He could just barely out of reach. And it ends with him looking to the shore and seeing this really big, tall zombie starting to head his way. And that's kind of it ended. And as I was writing the story, I kind of wanted to add a little bit of more backstory to it. And this is how this character evolved. And it was just basically a compilation of just little humorous little tidbits and observations in that Southern type of way that just really worked. Of course, I wrote it also with the improper English and the slang, and it just became a funny little story that a little bit of offensive. Some people actually did get offended by it, particularly the part about the phone call and using a fake foreign accent. I was called a racist a couple of times. I had to be very, very clear. If you're going to call somebody a racist, make sure you use it in the right context. Because there's a difference between a racist and a bigot, being judgmental or stereotyping. There's a big difference. Prejudice, all that. And so I had to educate a couple of people. So, and again, there's nothing mean-spirited in this story. I think we've just become so sensitive about things that we just can't learn to laugh at ourselves without it having some type of other context or connotation. And this is not what that was at all. It was looking at the humor of a character who was obviously not that bright and not that self-aware. And you do start getting a little bit of that kind of I knew that was kind of wrong. And so I tried to straighten up my act. But he is very insensitive, especially. It was a very insensitive ending, some might think. But I love it. I think it's funny. And I'll always defend it. But how this became the start of my channel, somebody reached out to me and asked if they could do a narration of the story, and this is one of the first stories, and I was like, oh hell yeah, I love somebody to narrate my story. That'd be awesome. And he did it, and it was just so horrible. Oh my god, it was just. I just have to be nice, but he sounded illiterate. I mean, and it came across as if it was something poorly written. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not, nobody's going to think that I write that bad. So that very next day, I got myself a microphone and I recorded it with my little horrible little accent, and it turned out really well. This one here has gotten a few narrations. So this one is really tough to narrate. It was easy for me because, again, I wrote it and I knew how to use the words and how to make them fit together. But a couple of people have done narrations, and they've done really good narrations, and I've always commended them that this is not an easy one to narrate because, again, there's so much slang, and you just can't read these words. You have to perform it. You have to just embody it. And a few people have done that. And I'm going to put links down to those videos so you guys can check it out. There's 3 that come to mind. One of them, who is very popular, most of you should know her. Yeah, her. She pulled it off. And the other 2 guys, really good too. So this was the zombie apocalypse. Yep, we do make fun of people. We cuss, call people dummies, and we do. I'm sorry for anybody, but I do make fun of Kellyanne Conway and her what do I call it? Her Bigfoot hairdo and her makeup put on all sideways like. So enjoy it and have a good night. Bye.